Hello, everybody. Welcome to Jake Crumpler's Top 100 Starting Pitchers, a momentous occasion that people watching live get to experience in real time. Off the bat, this is my first top 100 starting pitchers that I've gotten all the way through. So this is a pretty big deal for me as well. I think it's crazy that I'm doing this not only because of how far I've come and what I've done in the past, but also because Nick's met me in person multiple times and decided, you know what, I want to give this guy the mic for a full hour to talk by himself uninterrupted. I thought that was pretty crazy, but he's got a lot of faith in me, and I really appreciate that. But here we go. Here is my top 100 starting pitchers. I've been working on this night and day for the past couple of months. So hopefully you guys like my presentation over here. I actually probably spent more time on the presentation than I did on the actual list. That is just a joke. I spend a lot of time on the list, but let's get right into it. So it was a coincidence too that I got the color scheme right with the background and everything. So I hope you enjoy the beautiful slides as we move through. But let's start with tier one. Tier one, I think, is pretty much consensus across the industry. You got three guys that are above everybody else. It's really just how do you order these guys? And does it really matter unless you're going to be the guy who takes the first pitcher off the board? I'm not that type of guy, but if I were to, I would take Garrett Crochet over Paul Skeens and Tarek Skubal. He's got just an incredible floor. All these guys have incredible floors. He's got the same ceiling as everybody else. Feels like Skeens is the floor guy of this trio. Skubal is the ceiling guy, and Crochet's a mix of them both. He's got the high velo four-seamer that he improved throughout the season, really recovered it in the second half, and he incorporated a sinker and a sweeper this year to take the pressure off of his four-seamer cutter combo, which was really the driving force of his success 2 years ago. But last year we saw Crochet really take off, go beyond 200 innings, 2.59 ERA, 31% strikeout rate. He's absolutely incredible. And as I mentioned, I think these guys are pretty interchangeable. It's just I'm forced to choose one because I'm doing these rankings. But 1, 2, 3, Garrett Crochet, Paul Skeens, Tarek Skubal. I have no problem drafting any of them. They're all incredible. Paul Skeens, just generational talent. Tarek Skubal, back-to-back Cy Youngs. I'm just concerned about the feel for the changeup. It's such a feel pitch, and for him to continue the success that he's had over the past couple of years means he has to continue maintaining the feel that he has for that changeup. So that's something that I'm a little bit wary of, and that's why he's at the bottom of the tier. I think there can be argument about any of these guys, but once again, Crochet, Skeens, Skubal, interchangeable. So that's tier one. Now we'll move on to tier two. This is numbers 4 through 11. We got Brian Wu, Yoshinobu Yamamoto, Logan Gilbert, Christopher Sanchez, Hunter Brown, Cole Reagans, George Kirby, and Max Fried. I wouldn't say this is consensus, so we immediately start getting into, defending myself from the naysayers. I think at the top of the list, we got Brian Wu. He's got like a weird thing in my heart. We're moving around. He's got a weird place in my heart as the guy who is dating somebody that went to my high school. And I just found that very interesting and very weird. So that honestly gets him like a spot in my mind and pumps him up, but he doesn't need that at all to deserve this number 4 spot on the list. Brian Wu is absolutely incredible. He showed last year he's got the durability to pitch deep into games, and that was something that we were worried about after he had a very weird season in 2024, but he really solidified himself last year as maybe the pitcher in this tier with the highest floor. He's got strikeouts, he's got great ratios, he can go deep into ball games, and I still think there's another level for him to reach. It feels like maybe if he incorporates more breaking pitches and improves on the feel for his changeup, he could ascend even further in the strikeout department. We saw 14% swinging strike rate last year and a 27% strikeout rate. I think he can bump that over 30%, and that's really exciting, especially pitching in T-Mobile Park. It's one of the best pitching parks in all of baseball. So Brian Wu is incredible. The rest of this tier is also dope. Yamamoto really broke out in the playoffs last year. Incredible World Series performance. Very unfortunate. I'm one of the biggest Dodgers haters you'll ever talk to. And you don't want to get me started on that because it's not safe for pitcher lists most of the time. But Yamamoto is absolutely incredible. I think the playoff tax bumps him up a little bit because everybody was talking about after the playoffs that he's like the consensus number 4. I don't know if that's totally the case because he just doesn't throw enough strikes. Last year, we saw an 8.6% walk rate. And while he does make up for that with a lot of strikeouts and great ratios and great team context, I think that team context also reduces his ceiling because he's not going to have the same number of innings, not only pitching for a Dodgers team that is really willy-nilly with their IL placements, but also because they have a 6-man rotation and they're not going to let him start every 5 days. So he's not going to be somebody who's going to be pushing 200 innings. 175, that's fine. He didn't even reach that last year and he was incredible. Nonetheless, he just gets a lot of weak contact and strikeouts, and that's totally fine. Logan Gilbert, incredible. He just needs to put it all together for a full season again. I think health, and he'll be right back out there with some of the best extension in baseball. Christopher Sanchez was somebody that I was considering in the top 5. He's just so incredible with the feel and command for his pitches, but being so command focused and being somebody who relies on balls in play and not walking guys is something that I don't have a lot of confidence in. That being said, he's still number 7. Hunter Brown, probably somebody that I might lower later on. I mean, this is a list that's going to continue to be worked on throughout the offseason. So probably solidified when I'm doing my drafts in March, but going to continue to update it throughout February. Hunter Brown, somebody that I may move down because while people are really high on him, he's also somebody who doesn't throw as many strikes as the rest of these guys, and that's pretty concerning. Reagans and Kirby have incredible ceilings, and Max Fried has that incredible floor. Max Fried, great command pitcher. Reagans has one of the highest strikeout ceilings in baseball, and George Kirby right in between there, where in the past he was somebody that we thought could take that next step and become a top 5 pitcher. I think he's locked into the top 10 with his command, and that he has the stuff to really take off in the strikeout department if he can locate his fastballs upstairs, which we saw at the end of the season last year when he was striking out double-digit guys. Now we'll move on to tier number 3. I hope you guys are liking the baseball cards. That was a really fun part about putting this together. Not only the whole thing, but I like the aesthetic of it. And I think the cards really add a lot and sort of fun to look at. It was fun to choose one. So you have to choose the ones that are the right ones that don't have a huge background behind it. So it was a serious selection process, almost as serious as putting this list together. Tier 3, though, we've got some guys with injury question marks, but guys that we aren't really questioning their ability. So we got Jacob deGrom at 12, Chris Sale, Shohei Ohtani, Hunter Green, Blake Snell, Kyle Bradish, and Spencer Schwellenbach at number 18. I'll start from the top. deGrom and Sale are linked to me. They're both old guys who, when they're pitching, they're incredible, but it's never guaranteed that they're going to be pitching. We've seen full seasons from these guys recently. Sale won a Cy Young a couple of years ago. deGrom, full season last year. That's not something that you can bank on. I had these guys initially in the top 10, but I pushed them out because of that injury question mark. While I do expect them to be solid this upcoming year, I can't count on them for innings. The same can be said for Shohei Ohtani and Hunter Green. Both of these guys have unreal stuff, but we haven't really seen them put it all together for a full season. Ohtani above Green because he's got that complete arsenal that's absolutely bonkers all the way through, while Hunter Green's got the insane fastball slider combination that is almost unhittable, but he doesn't have a third pitch. He incorporated a splitter, and that's not really what he needs. He needs to throw more strikes. He threw that slider for strikes last year, and that really allowed him to take off, but we haven't seen a full season from him. Snell in that same department as well. He's somebody who doesn't throw strikes, and it doesn't matter. They're going to chase his stuff. He's got the Blake Snell blueprint, heaters upstairs, breakers down low, and it really works well for him, but he doesn't pitch long enough. He doesn't pitch deep into ball games because he's not throwing strikes. He doesn't pitch deep into the season because he can't stay healthy. When he does, he wins the Cy Young. He's done it twice. He's won 2 Cy Young awards in both of those seasons. So that's what you're banking on here with him at 16. But with Dodgeritis, I'm concerned that even if he is relatively healthy, he's still not having the same volume that makes the pitchers above this tier that great. And Bradish is somebody coming off of injury, but I really like his stuff. And then Schwellenbach, I think, is the big question mark here. He's coming off a fractured elbow, and I think that has some people pushing him down, like even towards 50. So I'm one of the highest guys on Schwellenbach, and that's because he's just got like the complete arsenal. He throws strikes. He's got 6 different pitches, but we're just concerned about the injury and whether or not he can come back. I just love how many strikes he throws with all of his pitches and that he has options for whiffs as well. I think he can even take another step because we saw last year 25% strikeout rate, 24.9 to be exact, but that came with a 14.7% swinging strike rate, which suggests that his strikeout rate should be higher than 25%. But I think because he throws so many strikes in the zone, you're getting a lot of hitters making contact. And in my opinion, if he was able to cut back on those strikes a little bit, he could go higher with the strikeout rate. He can reach a higher ceiling with the whiffs by forcing batters to chase more. But really, I think this guy is on his way to being one of the no doubt aces in baseball. It's just about staying healthy this season. And right now, I'm banking on it because we saw him working his way back in September. He didn't pitch in the majors, but we had news that he was working his way back. So I wouldn't blame anybody for moving him down if you're concerned about the injury. I just don't want to miss out on him. I took him in the mock draft that we did last night here on PitchCon, and I feel great about it. I feel great about that pitching staff in general. I think I got like George Kirby and Spencer Schwellenbach to start it off. That's, to me, a little bit risky with Schwellenbach and Kirby's performance last year, but the ceiling on that is off the charts. So this is a very high ceiling tier with injury questions. Let's move on to tier number 4. And we have some recognizable names. I think that's sort of what this tier is about. You got guys that you sort of know what to expect. Maybe not so much towards the end of the tier, but we have a lot of guys that have been pitching in baseball for the last few years and are going to give you a pretty decent floor with the potential for reaching a higher ceiling. I think this tier can almost be split in two, above Logan Webb and Framber Valdez and below Logan Webb and Framber Valdez, but it'd be a really small tier. I think it's better to do it this way. But Freddie Peralta, Joe Ryan, two of the most consistent pitchers in baseball, maybe not from start to start, but they do have incredible stuff. I think Freddie Peralta, with the move to the Mets, it's a worse ballpark, I think. Don't quote me on that. But Freddie Peralta's stuff is absolutely incredible. He just doesn't throw enough strikes. That being said, he gets a ton of strikeouts. His stuff is ridiculous. He's a little bit chaotic. I think Nick has called him Professor Chaos in the past, and that can be concerning with Freddie Peralta. That's why I think he would be even higher if he was somebody that you could really count on. Obviously, that makes sense. That's sort of just who he is. And Joe Ryan is in the same boat in a dissimilar way, in a different way, where he's just got that incredible fastball and he just needs something to pair with it. And he's got some weapons that are decent, but not incredible. And it's always a question mark of how high he can go, but I do really like his floor. Dylan Cease, sort of, there's a lot of different guys here, but I do feel like they're very similar. Dylan Cease is also somebody where you're concerned, but you know you're going to get a ton of strikeouts. It's just, where's the ERA and whip going to be? That whip's going to be high because he walks a ton of guys, but so does Freddie Peralta. So does Blake Snell above them. Dylan Cease is somebody, though, that's thrown 200 innings for like 4 straight seasons or something crazy. He's going to one of the best teams in baseball, and I think that's just going to make his win chance even higher. And his ERA estimators last year suggest that he should have been a lot better. I think that has to do with batted ball luck and home run to fly ball ratio. I think the move to Toronto is going to help him a lot, and excited to see what Cease can do. Webb and Valdez have always been linked in, I think, most people's minds. Webb is a guy who gets a lot of ground balls, and so is Framber Valdez. Webb, I think, has always been above Valdez. He's got a clear ceiling for volume, even though Valdez has been very good in that regard. But Webb also has shown the ability to get more strikeouts than Valdez does. Last year, we saw Webb with like a 27% strikeout rate, 26% strikeout rate. But both of these guys are really good. Valdez, they both are going to have high whips because of their reliance on balls in play. But Valdez is somebody whose whip is going to be even higher than Webb's because he walks so many guys. He's still unsigned, so depending on where he goes, I think that could say a lot about what to expect from Valdez this upcoming year. But both of these guys, very reliable in terms of innings. We saw 207 innings from Webb last year, 192 from Valdez. Both of these guys have the ceiling that comes with volume. So they're very reliable in that regard. And then we get to Shane Bieber, who's highlighted here with his card from the playoffs. He's returning to the Blue Jays. We got 2 Blue Jays in this tier. And I am pretty enamored with Shane Bieber, though there are question marks about like which version of Bieber we're going to get. Like, what is his baseline now? Is he somebody who's an elite Holly, somebody who's got like a 23 to 25% strikeout rate and great ratios and pitches deep into games? Or is he just like a hyped up Toby? Is he going to have a low 20% strikeout rate who sort of struggles with the ratios a bit, but is still rosterable, but is more so on the fringe? Or does he still have that ace upside we saw all the way back in 2020 and 2021 when he won the Cy Young Award in 2020? I don't think he's still got the ace upside, but that's why he's in this tier with these other guys that have upside in different forms. But he's got reliability, in my opinion, with the four-seamer, with above average metrics across the board, and the slider is one of multitude of secondaries that he has to support that pitch. He's somebody with excellent control and command, so he's not going to walk anybody. He's going to keep that whip low, which I think is a great jumping point for Shane Bieber. I think with the team context, he's going to have a ton of wins next year. I'm really enamored with this Blue Jays team in general. They took the Dodgers to Game 7 and almost beat them. And with the A's moving out of town, I'm a Giants fan. With the A's moving out of town, I live in the Bay Area, so I've been a Giants and A's fan throughout my life. They've never been in direct competition with each other in my lifetime, but having been a Dodgers hater, it was really nice to see the Blue Jays go head to head with them. And with the A's leaving town, I'm looking for a new AL team, and the Blue Jays really stole my heart. It feels a little bit bandwagony, but I'm sort of okay with that. But Bieber is somebody that I think if he can have the volume this upcoming year, which I think he's got just 1 year on his contract. So the Blue Jays are going to push him and see how many innings he can go. I really think that he's somebody who's reliable with a tangible ceiling. Then we have Michael King and Nick Pivetta, both guys on the Padres. Michael King struggled in his return from injury last year. I think he had the same fractured elbow that Schwellenbach did. And maybe that's a little bit telling of what to expect from Schwellenbach, because King looked completely different. He didn't look like the ace that he was the year before, but that ceiling, I think, is still there. I don't think his stuff has changed that much. The sinker is incredible. He's got a four-seamer to support it, and the changeup and sweeper and slider are enough to give him whiff offerings of both against both right-handed hitters and left-handed hitters. To me, I think he's still an ace, but he does have that floor of being a Holly, where I think he's going to give you a decent amount of strikeouts and good ratios on a pretty decent ball club. It's really just about volume here again, and that's where you can see sort of the difference between the guys at the top who are guaranteed for volume and the guys at the bottom who are not guaranteed volume, but if they get it, they're going to be reliable. And then Pivetta broke out last year. I was actually somebody who was driving the Pivetta train, watching him go from all these hitters ballparks to San Diego. I thought that by itself was going to be something that allowed him to take off, because he's somebody that's in his career been so reliant on home run to fly ball ratio. And with the move to San Diego, we not only saw the improvements because he wasn't allowing so many home runs, but his stuff just got better. His command was better. 6.9% walk rate this past year was really dope. I just don't think the strikeout rate is something that we can rely on as much. 11.7% swinging strike rate across the board for Pivetta, but a 26% strikeout rate. It's like the simplest math ever, so I don't know how much faith you can put into it. In my head, I double swinging strike rate, and I look at that and say, is that around what you can expect for this pitcher? And if you see a difference between that strikeout rate and the swinging strike rate, then you start to ask questions. So I think for Pivetta, I have faith in his approach and the ballpark that he's in, and I think he's going to be good. I just don't think we're going to see the same ceiling we saw last year with a sub-3 ERA and a sub-1 WHIP. Let's move on to tier 5. I did not practice this, so I don't know if my timing is going to be good, but I think I'm on the right track right now. I can't tell if I'm going too fast or too slow. I think we're going too slow, but here we go. Brandon Woodruff is the guy who starts off tier 5. Then we got Ari Perez, Jacob Mizorowski, Tyler Glasnow, Jesus Luzardo, Pablo Lopez, Nathan Eovaldi, and Emmett Sheehan. These are all guys that we have question marks about, both their ability to pitch deep into the season and into ball games, and their abilities when they're pitching. I think Brandon Woodruff is somebody who I was really high on, but I moved him down considering that we haven't seen that he can handle a full workload coming off like two straight lost seasons. But he looked so strong last year that like this was somebody I was considering in the top 15. That's how good he was. I think if he can handle a full workload, he's going to be an ace again. And the Brewers are going to push him because he's in a walk year. So we should see a pretty high workload if he can stay healthy. But last year, 32% strikeout rate from Brandon Woodruff with the sinker and the four-seamer and the changeup. He's got a beautiful arsenal, and he throws a ton of strikes with multiple fastballs, and he's great at inducing weak contact. According to Pitcher List, 100th percentile ICR across his arsenal. So he's somebody who goes out there and deadens bats, and that's something that you can rely on from him. And he's got whiff offerings for both handedness, lefties and righties. So I really like that. Eury Perez, Jacob Misiorowski, two young guys with very high ceilings. I like the depth of their arsenals that they pair with their high octane fastballs. To me, this is a very clear pairing because they are guys that we've seen have success in the majors, but it's about them taking that next step. It's about taking that pure stuff and making them into real pitchers. They go out and they command their arsenal. They command an outing. They command a mound. And I think both of these guys can do this. They're both very tall. They're both elite stuff with the fastballs. But it's just about putting that into a full season and being consistent throughout the whole year. Eury Perez is elite. But with Jacob Misiorowski, can he make the changes to his arsenal to be less volatile? And will his insane stuff carry him throughout the year? And how much do the Brewers hold him back? I think the same can be said for Eury Perez. Moving down the list, Tyler Glasnow. Usually I link with Blake Snell, but I've started to question his ability a little more because he regressed a little bit last year. We saw a 3.19 ERA and a 1.10 WHIP, but the ERA estimator suggested he wasn't as good. We saw 12% swinging strike rate with a 29% strikeout rate. So I think there's a little bit of a discrepancy there. I don't know if the ceiling is quite as high for Glasnow, and he's got the same injury questions, which with Dodgeritis as well. Jesus Luzardo, I was pretty high on as well, but having discussions about him with Nick, it's something where when you look at the full season numbers of Luzardo, you're blown away and you see the potential in him. But from start to start, he's such a headache. There's so much volatility that the full season doesn't really paint the picture of the breadth of the possibilities there. There's a very low floor because of his inability to be consistent from start to start. It's just the feel for his pitches is not always there. I do like that he has a clear approach for both right-handed hitters and left-handed hitters, and he hits all quadrants of the zone. I think that fastball, though, is a bit underwhelming. It's at 96 miles per hour. It's got a lot of horizontal movement, but it doesn't have a lot of success. So he's putting a lot of pressure on the rest of his arsenal. I think that works great. The sinker is dope, but it's a pitch for left-handed hitters. I just don't feel like he's got a fastball that's going to overwhelm righties. But in my opinion, it's like if he can be more consistent, he's got everything that he needs to be an ace once again. I think the whip's going to come down with better batted ball luck and with improved defense in Philadelphia. That's Jesus Luzardo, thanks to the sweeper he really took off last year. Then we have Pablo Lopez and Nathan Eovaldi, both coming off of injuries, and I think we don't really question Eovaldi's abilities. He's just a bigger injury question mark to me than Pablo Lopez, who is insisting that he's healthy coming into this season. He only tossed 75 innings last year, and we've seen from time to time him not be at his best when he doesn't have the feel for the changeup. But I really do think that Pablo Lopez is somebody with one of the highest ceilings out there, especially if he can stay healthy throughout the whole season, keep his fastball upstairs, and maintain the feel for his changeup. And then we get to Emmett Sheehan. You know I'm unbiased if I'm talking positively about a Dodger, and so I think that's really high praise for Emmett Sheehan. I think I have him higher than most people, but I really like Emmett Sheehan's stuff. The questions for me just revolve around the Dodgers. Are they going to prevent him from attaining his full potential because they either limit his workload or, play with him up and down in the majors, or maybe he doesn't even make the rotation out of spring training, though I think he is like the next homegrown ace of the Dodgers. He's got incredible stuff, great pitch separation. He gets a ton of whiffs. The team context is incredible if you get rid of Dodgeritis in your mind, because he's going to be getting a lot of wins, but that four-seamer is incredible. Tons of break. He's got a great approach angle with it, gets a lot of whiffs. The slider is a great supportive pitch there as well. And the changeup great against lefties at getting weak contact. And then he throws a curve to get called strikes, so he's stealing strikes with that curve. I think it's just a complete arsenal from Sheehan. He's got incredible pitching development staff with the Dodgers, and the Dodgers are going to give him a lot of wins. It's really just about the opportunity, and I think they're going to rely on Sheehan this year. 73 innings last year, so I don't know what the volume is going to look like, but I really like the upside with Emmett Sheehan. Moving forward, we've got tier 6, and this is a very high upside tier as well. We got some question marks here again. I mean, that's sort of like what you're doing when you're ranking these pitchers. It's you look at their stuff and then you just start, okay, what are the questions here? What can this guy improve? What are they good at? What's going to hold them back and what's going to allow them to take off? That's really the process you're going through with each of these guys. So obviously every tier is going to have a different amount of question marks, but always going to be some sort of presence. But here you can see a lot of upside and a lot of volatility as well. So from 35 to 44, we've got Bubba Chandler, Nick Lodolo, Chase Burns, Spencer Strider, Cam Schlittler, Robbie Ray, Sonny Gray, Shota Imanaga, Kevin Gausman, and Trey Yesavage. Bubba Chandler, I think, is my second favorite of the Hype 7. I think, as dubbed them, Bubba Chandler is somebody who I think has a more complete arsenal than somebody like Chase Burns or Cam Schlittler, where he does have the incredible fastball, but he's also got support from a changeup and slider and curveball. And the only questions is like, how much do the Pirates mess with him? Are they going to put him in the bullpen? Are they going to limit his workload? I think if they don't, the sky is the limit with that incredible fastball and multiple effective secondaries from Bubba Chandler. Nick Lodolo, though, is highlighted here. I'm really excited about him. And I think there's a lot of other people that are excited about him as well. We've never seen him put it all together for a full complete season. I put those two words together. 156 innings last year, but I mean, that's like fine for me, especially because he was so good last year. 3.33 ERA, 108 WHIP, 24% strikeout rate. What's crazy to me is, like, in my mind, for the previous few years, he was a guy who struggled with his control and command. Last year, sub 5% walk rate from Nick Lodolo. That's bonkers. He's a guy who's throwing strikes now with all of his pitches. He's got two fastballs, a four-seamer and a sinker that he throws for strikes, that he gets whiffs with, and just his insane build, his weird approach to the plate. It's like Chris Sale-esque. I think he's gotten a lot of comparisons to Chris Sale, especially with the Arsenal, but I think it's fair in my opinion. I don't think he's got the same ceiling that Sale has had in his career, but there's just so much to dream on here. There's even more strikeout upside beyond what he's done last year. 13.8% swinging strike rate suggests that we could see him go north of 25% strikeout rate. And I think the only question is about how much does Great American Ballpark factor in here, and can he stay healthy? I think the Arsenal is effective and thrown for strikes, and the funkiness makes him even more intriguing. And honestly, I think this could be the breakout season for Nick Lodolo. I paired him with his Reds teammate Chase Burns, who's like Hunter Green light, with the incredible fastball and the slider to support it. He just doesn't have a third pitch. He's got a changeup, but it's not one that I really trust. So how much can the four-seamer and slider carry him? They're not as elite of pitches as Hunter Green, but we saw last year the strikeout upside is off the chart. So Chase Burns is really fun pitcher to chase if you're looking for upside. And I think I paired him with Spencer Strider as well. To me, he's got the same problem. It's four-seamer slider without much support. We saw the curve sort of come into play and play a factor, but there's so much questions about Spencer Strider. Can he get his fastball back? Is he going to return to being the pitcher that he was in the past? Because 3 years ago, this was a guy who was almost a consensus top 3 pitcher in baseball. Like, he was ridiculous. The highest strikeout upside you could ever have in a pitcher. And then out of nowhere, he loses it all after injury. I have faith that he's going to turn it around. If I was confident, I'd have him even higher, but I think this is a good spot for Strider, because if he's able to tap into that upside again, it's just like, you can't find that anywhere else. Cam Schlittler, somebody with a fastball that's incredible. Again, he's got a cutter to support it, but I don't think the rest of the arsenal is quite as polished as those two pitches. There's concern about his health risk pitching for the Yankees. There's a lot of competition as well. So maybe if he struggles and Garrett Cole and Carlos Rodon are healthy, maybe we see Schlittler out of the rotation. We'll see. I don't have him that much lower than Chandler and Burns, so he's right up there with them. Robbie Ray and Sonny Gray, Shota Imanaga are a trio of guys that I think are going to be consistent this next year. They all have strikeout upside. They have the ability to have a lot of volume. I think these are guys that could have high wins totals as well, pitching for pretty decent teams. Excited to see what they can do, especially Sonny Gray going to Boston. They're going to love his plethora of secondaries. They're a team that just loves to spin the ball. And then lastly, we got Kevin Gausman and Trey Yesavage. Yesavage is sort of paired with the hype seven up there with Bubba Chandler, Chase Burns, and Cam Schlittler. It's just not as quite as high of a ceiling because he doesn't have that overwhelming stuff. For me, a lot of his success comes from his very vertical approaching. I don't know how steep, I would say. No, the other way around. He's pitching from up here, and it works really well. It catches batters off guard, but the more he's seen, the more batters are going to get him on the trajectory machine, and they're going to be able to hit him. That's why we saw the Blue Jays almost exclusively use him at home in the playoffs, because that's where he had that advantage. Visiting teams don't go to other ballparks and have access to a trajectory machine, so they're not able to go in there and face somebody with a unique approach. And that's why Savage was able to have so much success. That being said, to be able to have the wherewithal to withstand the pressures of facing the freaking Dodgers in the World Series is off the charts. And so I commend him for that. And that's why I'm relatively high on him compared to some other people. But for me, it's like he's Kevin Gausman. He's just got the four seamer and the splitter, and he's looking for something else. He's got the slider, but it's just not as successful. And that's the same that can be said for Kevin Gausman. So I think both of these guys are very similar. I think Savage maybe has a higher, they both have paths to more success, and Kevin Gausman just has a better splitter, in my opinion, than Savage, and Savage has more funkiness. So they're both really exciting to me. This whole tier is really exciting to me, where we've got upside in all different forms. I think I'm making good time now. We'll move on to tier 7. And these guys are more floor guys for me. I was huge on Gavin Williams last year. Let me run through the list real quick. From 45 to 53, Gavin Williams, Ryan Pepio, Nolan McLean, Aaron Nola, Sandy Alcantara, Drew Rasmussen, Cade Horton, Luis Castillo, and Tanner Bybee. Gavin Williams was somebody who I was huge in on last year. That was like my number one breakout pick. And there's always the question you ask yourself after getting one right is, do you double dip? Is like, did I get it so right that he's going to be able to do it again? Or is this somebody now that I should be asking more questions about? And when it comes to Gavin Williams, I just start asking questions because he doesn't throw enough strikes still. 11.8% walk rate last year. Obviously, he had an incredible second half last year, got the walk rate below 10%, 2.18 ERA, 28% strikeout rate if you're rounding up. But do the Arsenal changes that we saw in the second half really make the whole difference? His sinker became a big weapon for him in the second half to help him throw a lot of strikes, and the curve is a great pitch. I really like how much downward movement that pitch has, and he throws with a lot of velo and a lot of extension, so the perceived velocity on his four-seamer at 97 is probably close to 100. So he's got it all. That's why I don't have him so much lower. If I was somebody who wasn't in on him last year and had these same questions, I think I would have him lower. But because I witnessed the evolution of him, not only in the entirety of that season from the first half to the second half, but from the pitcher that he was before 2025, and already am sort of attached to him in that regard, I have him up here at the top of tier 7. Then we got Ryan Pepio, who, similar regard, he's somebody who I've always been waiting to break out. And last year we almost got it. It felt like he was getting so close to really ascending, but never quite fully reached it. And I think that's sort of where we're going to be at. And maybe that was just because he was pitching in George Steinbrenner Field, but moving to Tropicana Field, he's going to have a higher floor, in my opinion. And so, while if maybe he's not able to attain that ceiling that I thought he had in the past, or maybe he still has, he's still got the floor that's going to support it with the four-seamer and the changeup and the slider, and pitching for the Rays, who always know how to get the most out of a pitcher. Can he really reclaim the upside that he's flashed without any improvements to his arsenal, though? Nolan McLean, I'm another guy from the Hype 7. I definitely am a low man on McLean, and that's because while he had a lot of success last year, I don't think the strikeout rate is sustainable. I think he's more in line with these other guys in this tier, where you're thinking, okay, he's going to have a sub 25% strikeout rate, or maybe around there. Maybe he should be a tier up higher, but I think this is perfect for him because I'm not totally sold on that. The sinker is great. He gets a lot of strikes with that pitch. He gets whiffs, he gets called strikes, he gets ground balls. The sweeper He throws in the zone, which is always what you want to see. Gets a lot of called strikes with that pitch. The curve, he gets a bunch of whiffs with the pitch, gets weak contact, got a complete arsenal all the way through, deep arsenal. But he doesn't have a consistent whiff pitch against right-handed hitters because he's going in there with that sinker. That's a pitch that's going to be more inclined to get strikes and weak contact, and he's throwing the sweeper that doesn't get whiffs. So for me, that's what's going to prevent him from really taking off and getting those strikeouts that we saw last year. So I think for me, he's going to be a guy with a higher whip because he's ground ball dependent and he doesn't get a lot of strikeouts, and the ERA could climb if he regresses as we expect. Aaron Nola is somebody who we expect to regress in the opposite direction, and same with Sandy Alcantara. Both of these guys are guys who we can expect to have a lot of volume. Nola was injured last year and really struggled, and Sandy Alcantara was not injured and really struggled, but Alcantara's stuff is incredible. Alcantara was like, when he won Cy Young, that was a guy that I was super in on. Thanks to Nick. I won't take full credit for that one, but his stuff is incredible. He's one of my favorite pitchers to watch. It's really about, does he have that feel for the changeup? And if he can incorporate his curve more, in my opinion. I think that pitch is really good at getting whiffs. I think it's a pitch that will help him, but he should be good just by having a lot of volume. And I think if the defense in Miami improves, then that whip is going to be much improved as well. And so will the ratios across the board. He's just not a high strikeout guy. Nola is somebody who has a higher strikeout rate, but is not somebody that is going to have as great ratios as Sandy Alcantara. But both of these guys, I think we've seen in the past what they can do, and I'm expecting them to get closer to doing that again. Drew Rasmussen was somebody I moved up a lot because he does have good ratios. He's going to Tropicana Field, but he's not somebody who strikes out a lot of guys. 10.8% swinging strike rate last year suggests that the 21% strikeout rate we saw is probably what we're going to get. So he's going to have Toby-esque strikeout numbers, but because he's so elite at getting weak contact and throwing strikes and getting ground balls in front of a good defense in a pitcher's ballpark with a pitching development staff that's off the charts, I think Drew Rasmussen is somebody that you can rely on, no problem. And it's just not a ceiling guy. And I think that's what we see a lot in this tier, in this bottom half of this tier, is guys with higher floors, lower ceilings, but more predictable performances. And Cade Horton matches that as well. I think there's a higher strikeout upside for him because he commands his pitches so well, and he got a lot of whiffs last year, but he's got multiple fastballs and a clear approach against both handedness. I really think if he got a secondary whiff pitch, a second pitch that he gets whiffs with against both righties and lefties, then he could really ascend in the strikeout rate department. And maybe if he got a reliable secondary strike pitch, because he's so reliant on that four-seamer. But he had a very solid rookie campaign last year. He's got a deep pitch mix, and he clearly has a great feel for pitching, in my opinion. He's got that feel of being like a veteran, even though he's a rookie. And that gives me a lot of faith in Cade Horton. Luis Castillo, I think a bigger question mark than a lot of people want to say. I think the floor is high, but it's not a fun floor. Like, he's going to be so borderline when you draft him, and maybe I should lower him a little bit more. I raised him a little bit because I still see the possibility of him being decent like we've seen recently, but decent is not exciting in fantasy. Decent is not really what you want. And Castillo has been somebody who's been decent like that, very reliant on balls in play, has really shifted his arsenal so much from being that changeup focused guy he was in Cincinnati to now being a fastball slider guy. And I just don't have a lot of faith in him, especially as he continues to lose velocity on the fastball. And then lastly, Tanner Bybee, the ceiling just like disappeared. He never quite figured things out last year. It did always feel like he was pitching above his means in previous years. He's probably more of a Holly, and that's why he's in this tier of guys with lower strikeout potential, in my opinion, but higher floors. And Tanner Bybee, I think, is just somebody who's going to throw a lot of innings. He may not have the best ratios. He may not have a huge strikeout rate, but he's going to be somebody that's reliable. He's like right there with Luis Castillo, where he's going to throw a lot, but is it going to be exciting? Is he going to be somebody that you're considering removing from your team all year long? Moving to tier 8. We've got 54 to 63, Tatsuya Imai, Edward Cabrera, Trevor Rogers, Shane Baz, Bryce Miller, Matthew Boyd, Chris Bubich, Ranger Suarez, Noah Cameron, and Zach Gallen. A lot of question marks here. I've said that for every tier. This one is like, I don't know what to do with these guys quite yet. obviously with Imai, I need to see what he looks like in the majors. He's switching to a new ball. He's switching to a new league. He's never faced any of these hitters before outside of the WBC. So that's the big question mark for there. He's on the Astros. I trust the Astros. I think he's got a high ceiling based on what he did in NPB, but I want to see what he does before I start bumping him up. He's right in the middle of this list because I think he could really rise. And we've got a lot of guys that could rise depending on how well they do. Edward Cabrera finally figured things out last year as he found a consistent fastball for strikes, throwing the sinker more often than the four-seamer. And this was a guy that you could always dream on because of his velocity. He throws like a 94-mile-per-hour changeup. That's ridiculous. Most guys don't even throw their fastball that fast. I think the average fastball velocity in baseball is probably below his changeup velocity, Edward Cabrera. But now moving to the Cubs, I have more faith in his win ability. They've got a great defense behind him. So if he's getting ground balls and he's getting weak contact, he's going to be somebody that could really take off next year in a full season. 137 innings last year is really the only thing holding Cabrera back. Now we get to Trevor Rogers, who broke out, not out of nowhere. He was somebody who we were interested in when he pitched for the Marlins. He incorporated a sweeper, but he was one of the most lucky pitchers in baseball. His hotel holy trinity of equating luck, BABIP, home run to fly ball rate, and left on base percentage were all above the 96th percentile, meaning he was like a top 4% lucky guy in all of baseball across the board. The question is the fastball and changeup enough to carry him? And really, what do swatches look like last year or next year? What do southpaws with a dope changeup, a tight changeup, I think is what swatch stands for. What do those guys look like in 2026? Is the ball the same? Is that what it was last year that allowed these lefties with changeups take off? Or is it something else? Does the league readjust back to them? Can we rely on guys like Trevor Rogers, like, as we see down the list, Chris Bubich, Ranger Suarez, Noah Cameron? But Trevor Rogers displayed insane upside last year. I think the ERA is going to be above 3, but he's got a strikeout potential that a lot of these guys, once we get past 50, don't really have. We get to Shane Baz, who is also on the Orioles, moving to the Orioles away from Steinbrenner Field. That's going to help him a lot. And I think that will allow for at least decent steps towards his ERA estimators. Last year, 4.87 ERA, 3.76 xFIP, which, not to rely on ERA estimators for anything other than to tell you this guy was a little bit unlucky based on the strikeouts, based on the walks, based on the batted ball profile. This is how lucky this guy was. I'm never going to look at an ERA estimator and be like, that's what his ERA is going to be next year, but it will point you in the right direction of whether or not that ERA that he posted last year was super unlucky. But the four-seamer is dope. The curveball is dope. And he switched from a slider to a cutter last year and added more velocity to his fastball. And we've been dreaming on the ceiling for Baz, and maybe the moving out of Steinbrenner Field is really going to let him take off. Bryce Miller is somebody who just needs to stay healthy. He's got the fastball. He's been working so hard on finding secondaries to support it that I think he's going to get there at some point. Just stay healthy. Matthew Boyd, though, and this is a swatch as well. Can we trust these guys? Matthew Boyd, Chris Bubich, Ranger Suarez, Noah Cameron. I have Rogers above them because of the strikeout ceiling that we've seen from him. These other guys are not guys who you can really rely upon to be north of 25% in that regard. But Chris Bubich is the guy we've highlighted here. He's got a deep arsenal with a clear approach against both lefties and righties. And I think there is further strikeout upside based on his 14% strikeout rate. But I think we do have to be a bit wary because we didn't really see him pitch in the second half last year. Regression never hit him because he got injured. And so we didn't really get to see what it's like when he has to deal with a full volume, when he has to deal with batters making the adjustments against him. I don't think we're seeing a 2.55 ERA next year, but I think he's going to be really great. How much does the new park affect him as well, too? The same can be said for Noah Cameron and Ranger Suarez, and not new park because they're moving, but because they're moving in the fences in Kauffman Stadium. Ranger Suarez, though, moving to Boston, and Ranger Suarez is like the Vargas rule. That's his whole career has just been Vargas rules in and out, where sometimes he has a great feel for the command of a sinker and changeup, and that just allows him to be incredible, especially with the cutter as well. But can you rely on that? Can you rely on that going to a new team? Is this a guy that can stay healthy throughout the whole year? And is he a guy who is even worth it if he's not going to be striking out a lot of guys? Is he somebody that we're just looking for volume? Is he a Toby? Is really the question. Can he really keep low ratios if he's so reliant on balls in play? Lots of questions about Ranger Suarez. I think there's going to be a lot of variance in his ranking. And then Zach Gallen struggled last year mightily, but in my opinion, not much change in his arsenal other than his results. I think last year was really a fluke, and I'm hoping that he lands with a team that allows him to put last year behind him. And there's tons of tangible upside with Gallen, as he used to be somebody who was like a consensus top 15 starting pitcher. I don't think that ceiling is still there, but he's somebody that I feel like if he gets back on track, he's going to be rostered everywhere, and he can pitch a lot. 192 innings last year. All right, we move into tier 9. This is the injury tier. Connolly Early is on there. He's not an injury guy, but you'll see why I got him in there. 64 to 71. Zach Wheeler, Shane McClanahan, Grayson Rodriguez, Garrett Cole, Carlos Rodon, Joe Musgrove, Connolly Early, and Jared Jones. Zach Wheeler, somebody who last year I had him at number 1. He's somebody with the highest floor. He's one of the most consistent pitchers in baseball with the four-seamer and the sinker and the sweeper and the curve and the splitter and the cutter. Just super deep arsenal. The fastball is elite thanks to 96th percentile extension, 96th percentile height adjusted vertical approach angle, gets a ton of whiffs, 95th percentile PLV on the fastball, and he's got multiple whiff offerings to support it and can throw strikes with the rest of his arsenal. He's somebody who's durable when healthy. He regained some fastball velocity last year. It's just like, can he stay healthy? If he's healthy, like if we see him pitching in spring training, I'm bumping him up. He's in the top 5 for me. Like he's probably above Brian Wu, because Brian Wu is basically what Zach Wu is. Brian Wu is basically what the other way around. Brian Wu is Zach Wheeler. He wishes he was Zach Wheeler. I think that's pretty close. But in my opinion, I think Wheeler's just like, if he's healthy, he's going to take off. Same with Shane McClanahan. We haven't seen him in a couple of years. McClanahan's incredible fastball off the charts, but we haven't seen him since 2023. So what does his workload look like? If he's healthy and if he looks like he did before the injuries, that's another top 5 pitcher as well. Grayson Rodriguez, I think, has less injury questions to start the season. We have not seen him since 2024, and moving to the Angels, there's not a lot of confidence there, but last time he pitched, Grayson Rodriguez looked like he was about to take that next step into stardom. So I'm willing to take the chance, especially this late in drafts. And I got him in the mock draft last night as well. So Grayson Rodriguez, someone I'm excited to take a chance on late in drafts. He's not somebody I'm relying on. Garrett Cole, Carlos Rodon, 2 Yankees that are going to start the season on the IL. They've been great in the past. Cole was like a consensus number 1 pitcher for a long time. The last time he pitched, he did not look like the elite guy that he was in the past. 25% strikeout rate. The ratios weren't off the charts, but I think both of these guys, when they're healthy, they are going to be rostered. Joe Musgrove, we haven't seen it in a while as well. He didn't pitch last year, but his deep arsenal made him one of the most consistent pitchers in baseball for a few years in a row. I think if he can stay healthy, coming off this significant injury, he's going to be dope, but there's a lot of question marks around him. Connolly Early is here because I don't know when he's going to be in the rotation. I think that's the same thing for like all these guys. When are Cole and Rodon going to make their debuts? And that's what it is with Connolly Early. I think he's also in here because when he does pitch, that's like the number 1 guy I want on my team who may not make the opening day roster as a prospect pitcher. He has a clear approach against both lefties and righties. He's got 3 absolute weapons against left-handed pitchers that PLV, or left-handed hitters, that PLV absolutely loves with the, he's got the sinker, the slider, and the sweeper. They are incredible pitches against left-handed hitters, and the four-seamer with 88th percentile extension and 90th percentile IVB and 96th percentile height adjusted vertical approach angle is beautiful shape on that four-seamer. He really looked like an ace in his debut last year. 2.33 ERA, 37% strikeout rate, and the underlying metrics fully support that as well. I think he just needs to get the opportunity in a crowded Boston rotation, and then he'll make a huge impact. He's one of maybe the top call-up to monitor throughout the season. And then Jared Jones, question marks about like, when is he going to pitch? How much does he pitch? What level is he going to be at when he returns? Because when he did pitch last, it was like, okay, he's got all the stuff, but is he going to be able to take off? To me, he's like going to be similar to a Chase Burns, similar to a Hunter Green in his stuff. And it's just about putting it all together and staying healthy. All right. We are running out of time, but good thing we only have 4 more tiers. I better pick it up. Merrill Kelly, Seth Lugo, Reese Olson, Andrew Abbott, Joey Cantillo, Mackenzie Gore, Jack Flaherty, and Kodai Senga from 72 to 79. These are reliable guys that I just trust. And then also some guys that are going to give you a headache. You got Merrill Kelly and Seth Lugo are two of the most reliable Tobys in all of baseball. They're going to pitch a full season. They're going to be very solid throughout the year. And thanks to their deep arsenals, they're not going to be hurt by any specific kind of lineup. There's no righty heavy or lefty heavy lineup or certain ballpark that's going to prevent these guys from being solid throughout the year. They're just super reliable, and they kick off a tier of really unreliable guys. Reese Olson hasn't been able to stay healthy. Andrew Abbott, cannot figure him out. He doesn't throw strikes, and he pitches in Great American Ballpark, and he just gets away with it. He always outpitches his ERA estimators, and I think at some point he's going to fall off the cliff. He just can't be a guy who has a sub-3 ERA, especially when he's not striking anybody out. He's gets weak contact, but I don't know how much does he really control that, and can you group him in with the swatches? Is he somebody that's super reliant on the feel for his changeup? Joey Cantillo, though, incredible extension on the fastball, only throws 92, but 97th percentile extension suggests that that pitch looks a lot faster to hitters. He's got a great feel and command for his changeup as well. This is a guy who's I think he's a sleeper in my opinion. He's somebody not talked about a lot, but has that potential to take off, maybe not to complete ace-dom, but we saw 27% strikeout rate last year. And I think the walk rate is going to come down as well because he does throw strikes with his four-seamer and his changeup. So excited about Joey Cantillo. Mackenzie Gore and Jack Flaherty and Kodai Senga, they're all headaches, in my opinion. Nick calls these guys hipsters, headache-inducing pitchers that stifle the entire roster. Mackenzie Gore has been that perennially. He's got all the stuff in the world. He showed 160 innings last year. He's moving to the Rangers. So I think the better ballpark might allow him to take off. And we saw that in the first half last year, but he faded down the stretch. Can he throw enough strikes against righties with his secondaries to really achieve his potential? I think the Rangers may be able to help him there. Jack Flaherty is like, we've seen him have success in the past, but last year, 4.64 ERA, 1.28 whip. That's not something that is really digestible. So he scares me a lot, but because he's got decent command with his pitches and he's got a curve that has a lot of success and he does a good job of keeping his secondaries low. I think if he gets his fastball upstairs a little bit more, he could have a lot of success. That fastball with a 90th percentile HAVA, height adjusted vertical approach angle, should play well upstairs. So I think if he can get back to commanding his pitches better, he should have more success, but that he's limited in the arsenal, only 3 pitches. Like how much can you really do with that? And hopefully the lack of success last year forces him to make a change this upcoming year. Kodai Senga, though, like the ghost fork is incredible. The fastball is not, it's pretty mid, and he doesn't really have anything else. The cutter is good, but it doesn't do exactly what he needs it to do. He needs another secondary whiff pitch. He needs better fastball command and control. He needs to stay healthy. He needs to ward off all the other guys trying to make that rotation, and a lot of question marks with Kodai Senga, but we've seen the potential in the past with his strikeout upside. Tier 11, this is the second to last upside tier. We've got 80 to 87, Troy Melton, Zebby Matthews, Ryan Weathers, Parker Messick, Roki Sasaki, Ryan Nelson, Jack Leiter, and Cade Cavalli. Troy Melton, super high upside. His fastball is incredible at 97 miles per hour with great shape. I think he's like a guarantee to have success next year, but he's not a guarantee to be in the Tigers rotation. And that's the biggest question mark for me. Is he going to pitch in the majors? And there's just so many guys there that when he does get the opportunity in the majors, if he doesn't capitalize on it, if he squanders that opportunity, Melton's going to be pushed away for somebody else because the Tigers are trying to compete there. I think Zebby Matthews is going to have more opportunity and maybe doesn't have as much security in his stuff, but he's somebody that has a lot of potential. The fastball and slider are dope, and the cutter is a great glue pitch, and I think he's definitely a sleeper with legit upside, but he needs to do a better job of avoiding loud contact. And really, what does it take for him to do that? He was somebody who allowed a ton of hard contact. Ryan Weathers going to the Yankees. Can he stay healthy? I think his stuff's incredible, but he's got a lot of competition there. So if he doesn't stay healthy and he doesn't perform, somebody's going to take his job. Parker Messick, fastball, changeup, slider, sinker, and uses them all very effectively. The fastball upstairs, 100th percentile CSW, 92nd percentile PLV. It's because he commands it so well at 93 miles per hour. Really like Parker Messick as an under the radar option. We saw him have a lot of success last year in a limited sample, but he just doesn't walk anybody, and he's got great command of his pitches, and he's sort of really exciting while also being a little bit underwhelming, but I think that that's fine this late in the draft. Roki Sasaki is like one of the biggest question marks. I think he should be back in the bullpen, but for the people that think he fixed everything in the playoffs, it's like, go look at any underlying metric there, and it just doesn't support that he was really fixed when he came back. The velocity was back, but he didn't have command. If batters just stopped swinging against him in the World Series, he would have blown the Dodgers' chances there. But they just kept swinging, and the splitter's absolutely incredible, and he throws hard with the fastball with a ton of extension, but he just doesn't have the command. He doesn't have the control. He didn't seem to have the mental aspect of it either last year, as we saw him struggle in the minors, but he figured things out in the playoffs, and you got to trust the Dodgers a little bit. There's just Dodgeritis though as well. Ryan Nelson, that like one of the best fastballs in baseball and just nothing else. And that's like the whole story with him. Love the fastball. How much can it carry him throughout the season? Jack Leiter, great fastball as well. Decent slider, and showed pretty decent volume last year, 151 innings pitched. So I think he's got ceiling that's tangible because he's young. If he just improves his arsenal, he could really take off. If he can improve the command of his secondaries, I think that's also going to help support the heater. And because he threw 150 innings last year, we could probably see him bump that up more easily than other guys can. So Jack Leiter's interesting. And then Cade Cavalli, I'm the high man on Cade Cavalli, maybe everywhere. That's partially, maybe mostly because he's my girlfriend's sister's husband's nephew. Basically like my brother. Never met him. But that's pretty cool in my opinion. And he's also got dope stuff. 97-mile-per-hour fastball, hammer curveball at 86 miles per hour. He gets strikes with the pitch. He gets whiffs with the pitch. He gets ground balls with the pitch. He's got a sinker to support the four-seamer. I just think he has the right pitch mix to ward off platoon splits, and he does a good job at getting a ton of whiffs and ground balls. He needs to command his four-seamer more, either in the zone or throw it out of the zone more. And I think the sinker and cutter are going to be better options to avoid hard contact. So if he sort of expands his arsenal a little bit and focuses more on those ancillary fastballs, I think he could really take off. We haven't seen him in the majors for 3 years. So maybe with some more familiarity of being in the majors and getting more comfortable, he really takes off. But I like the upside here with Cade Cavalli. Now we get to the floor tier right before our last tier. From 88 to 94, Casey Mize, Shane Smith, Lucas Giolito, Quinn Priester, Will Warren, Brian Bayo, and Zach Eflin. These guys are all like reliable. They're not going to be huge strikeout upside guys, but they're going to be solid. Can they get by with good ratios while not being strikeout pitchers is always the question. Casey Mize, does he really have potential just because he was the number one pick? I don't think his arsenal speaks to that. Shane Smith, all-star last year, weak contact machine, clear approach versus both-handedness. He throws both of his heaters in the zone, and he gets whiffs with a pair of secondaries as well. That excites me a lot. Just the win opportunity is very low, just 7 wins last year. Lucas Giolito doesn't have a team. Quinn Priester is somebody who I don't really believe in the performance last year, but you can't really send a guy away just because you don't fully believe in what he did last year. He's really relying on balls in play, and I think the Brewers are good at supporting a pitcher like that. Will Warren briefly flashed upside. I don't really trust it, and there's so many pitchers in that Yankees organization to bump him out of there. Brian Bayo, same situation where he's got upside. He's never tapped into it. He doesn't strike out a lot of guys. He's going to get an opportunity in that Red Sox rotation, but I don't know if he really takes off and if he can ward off the rest of the guys like Connolly Early and Peyton Tolle. Zach Eflin, reliable. Toby with Holly upside. And our last tier, as we are running out of time, tier 13, 95 to 100, Braxton Ashcraft, Jacob Latz, Peyton Tolle, Andrew Painter, Cody Ponce, and Ryan Weiss. Jacob Latz, fastball, changeup, slider. He's got a great fastball with great shape. He gets a lot of whiffs, 99th percentile PLV. Braxton Ashcraft is somebody that excites me a lot because he's going to have an opportunity in that Pirates rotation. He's got great attributes on his four-seamer, throws a secondary fastball for strikes as well, and he controls an effective slider. So high upside there with Braxton Ashcraft. Peyton Tolle just doesn't have a spot in the rotation, but his fastball is incredible. I think if he gets an opportunity, he's worth rostering everywhere. Andrew Painter, one of the top pitching prospects in baseball. And then a pair of guys coming over from the KBO, Cody Ponce and Ryan Weiss. Ponce got a 3-year, $30 million contract with the Blue Jays. I think that speaks enough. Once we see him, I can start moving him up. Same with Ryan Weiss. The other 3 KBO guys, or NPB and KBO guys, the guys who came over from overseas, Foster Griffin, Anthony Kay, and Drew Anderson, are all on teams where I don't really see their spot solidified. And Anthony Kay and Foster Gribbin are solidified, but they're on bad teams. So like they're going to get the opportunity. I think the teams that they're on suggest that they weren't really as highly coveted by the rest of baseball. Ponce and Weiss, though, going to these playoff teams like the Astros and the Blue Jays, it suggests that those guys are really dope. I'm excited to see what these guys can do in the majors. But that's it. That's my top 100 starting pitchers. I did it. I made it just in time.
Well done. Well done, Jake Crumpler. Obviously there are some that I'm like, I don't know, but how dare you continue this whole Ryan Weiss discussion? This is guys, this was my number one sleeper. This was past 400, 450. I put it on Twitter. Nobody guessed it. It's Ryan Weiss. Ryan Weiss is going to be good for you in a 12-teamer, and he's going nowhere near that price right now. Jake, gotta say, man, it is not easy doing that. I don't know anything about it, but it's seriously, really phenomenal job.
Thank you.
This is Jake Crumpler, guys, and get used to him. That's what I'm going to say. He knows things. He's really smart. He's got the energy. Look, he just did that for an hour, just a complete speed run. How you feeling?
I need some water.
Yeah, I always added a water break.
I thought about it, but I was running out of time. I got water right here. I
oh my gosh.
I was too locked in. It's like the sore throat was sort of propelling me.
Number one trick for a live stream. You got to do a mug. It's way more.
Yeah, because you can have a cool one like that. McClana fan.
It's way more presentable.